November 13th, 1942. Ironbottom Sound. Just after midnight. The sea is black. So black it seems to absorb starlight. Low clouds hang over the Solomon Islands, pressing the night down onto the water. There is no moon, no horizon. Only the faint phosphorescent wake of warships cutting silently through the sound. On the bridge of the Japanese battleship Hiei, Vice Admiral Hiroaki Abe peers through his binoculars. His eyes ache slightly, but that is nothing new. He has trusted them his entire career. Optics, training, instinct. This is where the Imperial Japanese Navy excels. Night fighting. For decades, Japanese naval doctrine has been built around this darkness, around the belief that no navy on Earth can see, maneuver, or strike in the night like Japan can. Their crews drill endlessly in silhouette recognition, star shell illumination, torpedo attacks launched by feel as much as sight. Electronics are a curiosity, useful perhaps, but unreliable, dishonorable even, a crutch. Abe lowers his binoculars. Nothing. No enemy silhouettes, no muzzle flashes, no movement. The Americans should be here. Intelligence reports say U.S. cruisers and destroyers are guarding Guadalcanal. They must be. The airfield, Henderson Field, has become a thorn in Japan's side, and tonight Abe has been sent to crush it. His battleships are loaded with high-explosive shells, not armor-piercing rounds. This is not a fleet action. It is supposed to be a slaughter. Somewhere off the port bow, a Japanese lookout shifts his weight, straining his eyes. He sees nothing but darkness and rain squalls. Then, a flash. Not ahead, not even visible to the naked eye. On the American side of the Sound, aboard the heavy cruiser USS San Francisco, a green glow pulses faintly inside a cramped metal compartment deep below decks. Sailors lean over cathode ray tubes, their faces lit by ghostly arcs and sweeping lines. Radar. A blip appears. Then another. Then many. Multiple contacts. A radar operator calls out, his voice tight. Bearing 270, range decreasing fast. Above him, Captain Cassius M. Callahan grips the edge of the chart table. He does not see the enemy. He doesn't need to. For the first time in naval history, warships are about to fight an enemy they cannot see by sight. The Japanese formation continues forward, unaware that they have already been found, measured, and tracked. Their ships are beautifully arranged for a night bombardment, not for chaos. Battleships in the center, cruisers and destroyers screening them. Perfect if the enemy is blind. At 0124 hours, American destroyers open fire. The night explodes. Shells scream out of the darkness and slam into the Hiei. Steel tears, searchlights snap on instinctively, too late, and are immediately annihilated by radar-directed gunfire. On the Japanese bridge, men stagger as shock waves ripple through the ship. Someone shouts a warning, but no one understands what is happening. How are they firing so accurately? How do they know where we are? Another salvo hits. Then another. Admiral Abe is thrown against the railing. Blood runs into his eyes. His proud battleship is already crippled, its steering damaged, fires spreading across the deck. This is not how night battles are supposed to go. Across Ironbottom Sound, American ships fire with mechanical precision. Radar plots update every few seconds. Fire control computers adjust angles automatically. Gun directors do not wait for flashes or silhouettes. They already know. Japanese destroyers attempt to maneuver, launching torpedoes towards where they believe the Americans might be. But the Americans are no longer where they were seconds ago.
Radar shows everything. Japanese gunners fire back blindly, shells splashing into empty water or tearing through clouds. One by one, Japanese ships are hit. Some never even see what killed them. A cruiser erupts in flame. A destroyer loses power and drifts helpless before vanishing in a pillar of fire. For years, Imperial Japanese Navy officers had dismissed American radar as experimental, unreliable, too delicate for combat. They believed skill would always triumph over machinery. Tonight, skill has no eyes, and machinery does. By dawn, Ironbottom Sound will earn its name once again.
The fires on Hiei burn through the night. Below decks, damage control parties fight flooding with bare hands and flashlights. Steam hisses from ruptured lines. Electrical cables spark and die. Somewhere deep in the hull, a compass spins uselessly. Steering control is gone. Vice Admiral Abe stands on the shattered bridge, his uniform soaked, his ears ringing. Reports arrive in fragments. Destroyers damaged, communications confused, enemy fire impossibly accurate. This was never supposed to happen. For the Imperial Japanese Navy, the night is sacred. Long before the war, Japanese naval thinkers obsessed over a single question: how to defeat a numerically superior enemy. The answer they arrived at was elegant and terrifying. Lure the enemy across the Pacific, attrit them with submarines and aircraft, then, at the decisive moment, annihilate what remains in a single, massive night surface battle. At night, numbers mean less. Training means everything. Japanese crews practiced night maneuvers until they could judge distance by engine noise alone. Lookouts memorized ship silhouettes until recognition was instinctive. Torpedo officers trained with the Type 93, the long lance, a weapon so advanced it could travel farther and hit harder than anything afloat. The Americans, by comparison, were considered clumsy, loud, over-reliant on machinery. Their early war performance had only reinforced this belief. Radar? A novelty. Yes, Japanese engineers had developed radar sets of their own, but adoption was slow, uneven, and half-hearted. Many senior officers distrusted electronics. Machines could fail. Saltwater corroded contacts. Signals could be jammed or misunderstood. Eyes never lied. Experience never malfunctioned. Abe had grown up in this doctrine. So had nearly every officer under his command. Tonight's mission, bombard Henderson Field, was routine by Japanese standards, a textbook night operation, approach unseen, fire, withdraw before dawn. But radar has rewritten the textbook. On the American side, confusion reigns too, but of a different kind. The U.S. task force is a mixed bag of cruisers and destroyers thrown together hastily. Captain Callahan himself is unfamiliar with radar tactics at this scale. Orders are shouted. Ships cross paths at dangerously close ranges. Men die on American decks as well. The night is chaos. Yet through the confusion, one thing remains constant. The radar scopes keep painting the picture. Even when smoke blinds the bridge, even when visibility collapses to nothing, the glowing screens continue to show where the enemy is and where he will be in seconds. Japanese officers begin to notice the pattern. Every time a searchlight flickers on, it is immediately answered by American gunfire. Every maneuver is anticipated. Every attempt to slip into darkness fails. It feels unnatural. As dawn approaches, Abe faces a brutal decision. His flagship is crippled. Air attack is inevitable once daylight comes. He orders the surviving ships to withdraw. The Hiei is left behind. By morning, American aircraft swarm the wounded battleship.
Bombs and torpedoes strike again and again. Flames tower hundreds of feet into the sky. Eventually, Japanese escorts scuttle her to prevent capture. A battleship lost, not to a decisive gunnery duel, but to something far worse. In Tokyo, the reports are read carefully, too carefully. Staff officers circle phrases in red pencil. Enemy fire accurate from first salvo. Engagement occurred without visual contact. Searchlights ineffective. No one says the word out loud yet. Radar. Officially, the battle is explained away. Confusion, chance, poor coordination, a one-off disaster. The doctrine remains sound. But among younger officers, especially those who fought at Ironbottom Sound, doubt has crept in. If the Americans can see at night, what else can they see? Weeks later, in the same waters, another Japanese force will sail south.
November 30th, 1942. Tasafaranga Point. Shortly before midnight. The Japanese destroyers run dark. No running lights, no unnecessary radio chatter, just long, lean hulls slicing through the water at high speed, their engines tuned to a familiar rhythm. These are not capital ships lumbering into danger. These are veterans of night war, fast, deadly, confident. Rear Admiral Raizo Tanaka stands calmly on the bridge of his flagship, Naganami. He is one of the Imperial Navy's most respected destroyer commanders. His mission is simple: deliver supplies to Japanese troops on Guadalcanal using high-speed destroyer runs, the Tokyo Express. American cruisers are rumored to be nearby. Tanaka is unconcerned. If the Americans appear, he will strike first. He always does. The doctrine still holds. Across the Sound, the U.S. Navy waits. 5 cruisers, 4 destroyers. They sit in silence, engines barely turning, radar antennas spinning steadily above them like mechanical sentinels. Inside combat information centers, new, cramped spaces that many officers still barely trust, radar operators whisper ranges and bearings. The enemy is coming. The Americans know it before a single Japanese sailor senses danger. On the radar scope, the contacts emerge one by one, thin, sharp returns, moving fast, hugging the coast. Destroyers. Multiple bogies, bearing 085, speed high. This time, the Americans have learned from Ironbottom Sound. Orders are clearer, formation tighter. Destroyers move forward, not as scouts, but as executioners. At 2:30:06, American destroyers fire torpedoes, guided not by sight, but by radar calculations. Long, invisible tracks slice through black water toward where the Japanese will be, not where they are. Tanaka still sees nothing. No searchlights, no flashes, no warning. Then the American cruisers open fire. Shells streak across the water, landing with terrifying accuracy. The destroyer Takanami is caught almost immediately, smashed by gunfire before she can even maneuver. Flames erupt. Her radio dies mid-transmission. Japanese lookouts shout bearings. Gun crews scramble. Torpedo tubes swing toward shadows that may or may not exist. Tanaka reacts instantly, ordering evasive maneuvers and a mass long-lance torpedo launch. The water fills with lethal weapons, fanning out across the Sound. And then, reversal. The Americans are hit. One by one, torpedoes slam into their hulls. USS Minneapolis, USS New Orleans, USS Pensacola. Explosions rip open bows, twist steel, kill hundreds. For a moment, it seems the doctrine has reasserted itself. Japanese skill, Japanese torpedoes, American arrogance punished. But the night is not over.
Despite devastating damage, American radar remains alive. Fire control continues. Guns still track targets through smoke and flame. Takanami burns uncontrollably and sinks. Other Japanese destroyers are hit, damaged, driven off. Tanaka escapes, but only just. As his surviving ships retreat north, he looks back at the fires marking American ships and feels no triumph. Something about the battle feels wrong. The Americans struck first, again. They knew exactly where his force was, again. Later, when reports are compiled, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Even when Japanese torpedoes hit hard, even when tactics succeed locally, the Americans keep controlling the flow of battle. They decide when contact begins. They decide when it ends. They are dictating the night. And slowly, painfully, Japanese naval leadership begins to understand the implications. Night is no longer protection. Darkness is no longer concealment. It has become a hunting ground, owned by the enemy. And the Americans are getting better.
The reports pile up on desks in Tokyo and truck. After-action summaries, damage assessments, survivor testimonies written in tight, careful script. Each one describes a different battle, a different night, but the language begins to sound the same. Enemy fire opened without visual contact. Initial salvos extremely accurate. Searchlights neutralized immediately. No one wants to say it plainly, but everyone understands. The Americans are no longer fighting the night. They are using it. For Japanese naval culture, this is more than a tactical problem. It is an existential one. Imperial officers are raised to believe that war at sea is an art, mastered through discipline, intuition, and spiritual resolve. Machines assist, but men decide. Victory is earned through perception, judgment, and courage. Radar does not fit neatly into this worldview. Radar does not reward intuition. Radar does not care about experience. Radar does not hesitate. Inside American ships, a quiet revolution is underway. Early in the war, radar had been treated cautiously, another instrument on the bridge, often ignored when it conflicted with what officers saw through binoculars. But Guadalcanal changes that, brutally. A new space becomes the heart of the ship, the Combat Information Center, dimly lit, cramped, no windows, just plotting tables, headsets, and glowing scopes. Young officers, some barely out of training, stand shoulder to shoulder with enlisted technicians, translating raw electronic signals into decisions that shape entire battles. Contact turning starboard, enemy speed increasing, recommend course change now. They speak calmly, and captains begin to listen. Japanese observers, when they later encounter these systems, are unsettled by what they see. Not just the technology, but the trust placed in it. Orders are issued based on data no human eye can confirm. Guns fire before the enemy is visible. It feels wrong, yet it works. By early 1943, American night engagements grow increasingly one-sided. Japanese ships still fight hard, still maneuver skillfully, still launch deadly torpedo attacks, but they are reacting, always reacting. Radar gives the Americans the initiative, the most valuable currency in combat. It compresses decision time, it removes uncertainty, it turns darkness into information. One Japanese officer will later write that fighting the Americans at night feels like standing in a spotlight with blindfolded. The Imperial Navy attempts to respond. Radar sets are rushed into production, training manuals are rewritten,
but adoption is uneven, and skepticism remains deeply ingrained. Some commanders distrust the readings. Others lack enough trained operators to use the equipment effectively. And time is running out. Because radar is only part of the story. As 1943 progresses, American radar is paired with improved fire control computers, better communication between ships, and, most critically, experience. Crews learn when to trust the screen over their instincts.
June 19, 1944. The Philippine Sea. Late afternoon sliding toward dusk. The horizon stretches wide and empty. For Admiral Jisaburo Ozawa, commanding the Japanese mobile fleet, the coming night still represents opportunity. Daylight has gone badly, catastrophically badly, but darkness has always been Japan's ally. American aircraft have savaged his carriers. Pilots are missing, decks are scarred, fuel burns where it shouldn't. Yet Ozawa believes the night may still offer a chance to strike back. Surface action, torpedoes, confusion. The old faith has not completely died. Across the water, the Fifth Fleet prepares, not with nerves, but with procedure. Radar sweeps extend hundreds of miles. Fighter direction officers track returning aircraft and enemy formations with equal clarity. Even as the sun dips below the horizon, American awareness does not dim. It sharpens. Japanese pilots returning at dusk find American carriers glowing, not with lights, but with order. Landing signals are controlled. Airspace is managed. Crashes happen, but chaos does not. For the first time, Japanese aviators realize that night itself no longer belongs to them. Later, historians will call this battle the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. The phrase will focus on aerial combat, on lopsided losses, on training disparities. But beneath it all lies the same invisible thread that began at Ironbottom Sound. Information, radar, control. Japanese naval doctrine had been built on the assumption that the enemy would be as blind at night as they were. That assumption shaped everything: ship design, training, tactics, confidence. When it collapsed, nothing replaced it fast enough. Ozawa withdraws under cover of darkness, not to set a trap, but to survive. His fleet melts away into the night, hunted not by sight, but by signals. The illusion is gone. Darkness is no longer sanctuary, it is exposure. Long after the war, Japanese officers will reflect on these moments with bitterness and clarity. Some will admit what could not be admitted then, that radar was not merely a tool, but a revolution they resisted, a revolution that turned their greatest strength into a fatal weakness. And somewhere in those reflections lies a sobering truth, one that extends far beyond the Pacific War. Wars are not always lost when armies are defeated. Sometimes they are lost the moment one side learns to see, while the other insists on looking.